Okay, so for those of you that haven't seen it, Repose made a video about Dark and Darker called "Is Dark and Darker Dead?" where he talks about like I guess he's talking about like the history of Dark and Darker and whether or not, you know, the game has like staying power. Repose has like 11,000 hours or something in Dark and Darker in client. So like if you go and like you hit escape or whatever in game, right? It'll tell you like how many hours you have. You know, like it says, like I have 3,227. That's only been a stat since playtest 4. So if you played prior to then, you have another like 500 to 750 hours, something like that, that goes unaccounted for. So he has like 11,000 hours and change in client, which is nuts, considering how long the game's been around. Turn it up.
Definitely dwindling wipe after wipe. In the past, the community has had faith because we had things to look forward to. Once the lawsuit ended or once the game released on Steam, it would be nothing but upward trajectory after that. But here we are, post Steam release and post lawsuit, and the game is simply bleeding players each wipe. People often claim that the game is dead or dying while setting player numbers, but this number can fluctuate a lot depending on what time you look at it, what day of the week, if there's any holidays, etc, etc. I think the best way to look at the actual player base of the game is to use the website Steam charts, because if we use get real stats and timestamps to draw conclusions from on the health of the game. So the state of the game. Dark and Darker released on Steam in June of 2024. And according to Steam charts, it launched with around 40,000 online players. This number held to around 30,000 for most of the wipe, and next wipe was scheduled in September. September wipe launched with around 25,000 people online, and it hovered around the 20,000 player range for most of the wipe. After that, we had the wipe of December of 2024. It also launched with around 25,000 people. It lasted 4 months, and near the end of the wipe, the Steam player base was hovering around 10,000, which was a historic low. Finally, after that, we have the current wipe, which was April of 2025. The wipe launch had around 20,000 concurrent on Steam, and we're only a month in when we're already kind of in the 10,000 concurrent player range, which is pretty crazy because we're not even halfway into the wipe, and we're already at similar numbers to the end of last wipe, which lasted longer than most wipes even should last. It was 4 months long, and we usually expect around 3 months, which is pretty bad.
Yeah. And I think the primary issue is that there isn't any new content for people to absorb. There really wasn't that much new content. I mean, we had Sorcerer last wipe, right? So people were like exploring like how Sorc worked. And then this wipe, it was PvE mode, and there really wasn't anything new to bite into. Plus, like you had all of the bugs of the loot system. You had several weeks where Wyvern wasn't dropping any artifacts, so you had all the hardcores that like used to farm Wyvern that were kind of going hard on that kind of stuff, and they weren't digging it. And then you have the boss summoning stuff where people are complaining that the boss summoning is not fun or interesting. Like they're restricting people's enjoyment, I guess.
There's a strong argument you can make that yes, the game is currently dying if you look at these numbers. In this video, I want to talk about why I think that is, and what I think they need to do to turn this game around and set Dark and Dark.
Well, all is that dead videos because it feels like Doomer content. Well, he literally started off by saying, "Is Dark and Darker dead?"
No, not yet, anyway.
So, is it Doomer content, or did you just go by the headline, Faye? You know what I mean?
Strong argument you can make that yes, the game is currently dying if you look at these numbers. In this video, I want to talk about why I think that is, and what I think they need to do to turn this game around and set Dark and Darker on the right path. I know a lot of people think this game is doomed, but I really do love this game, and I hope that if they make the right decisions, this game can bounce back. A great game that proves that it's possible for lower player-based games to bounce back is Rust. If you look at the Rust Steam charts, this is what every single company wants to see when they open their stat page. When Rust launched, it had a bit of an explosive entrance. It hovered around 35k concurrent about a month into release. Over time, this number did dwindle down to around 5,000 players, which is pretty low.
Yeah, so he's right here too. Like Rust began prior to the standalone client, like on the Steam release. Rust was like a web-based game, and then you know the PvP got really cutthroat, and there was a lot of jank shit with it, and like cheaters were really bad back then. Player numbers fell off hard, and then around like 2016 they started picking up like really well.
A lot of people
and a lot of it is attributed to like some of the funny content that got made. You know, like people always try to like shit on content creators by saying that like they don't do anything for player bases, or they don't pick up anything, or like you know games don't benefit from them in any way or whatever. And I completely disagree with that. I think that content creators do more marketing for video games than anything else. else. And the moment that you have a content creator that really pops off when it comes to a certain video game, like Jinxie, for instance, with Rainbow Six, if you look at R6 Siege's numbers prior to Jinxie becoming like uber famous and like viewed everywhere, you can see the uptick where people started getting into R6 more because of people like him catapulting the game, you know?
But this time we're also saying Rust was on its way out, dead game, it's over. But over the years, Rust went from 5,000 concurrent, went to 15,000 the next year, 25,000 the year after, and it's only kept climbing since then. It's had ups and downs, but Rust went from a game that was near death, arguably at 5,000 players, all the way up to one of the top games at Steam. It usually sits around 100,000 players online at any given day. And I think
and honestly, their highest recorded peak was like 2 months ago, a month ago. Like they had their highest concurrent player count ever. And you know, in the game for a game that's 11 years old on Steam, in like what, 13 years old in total, like that's absolutely crazy.
I think this could be Dark and Darker one day. So the first question is, how did we get here? So it's no secret that Dark and Darker has been on a slow decline pretty much since the release of the game. Dark and Darker early access launch was pretty much the height of the game's popularity, and we've only lost players since then. We've had small player injections from Steam release and the now removed Epic Games release, but regardless of
the Epic Games like free account thing in Christmas where everybody and their brother bought or got like 17 free accounts so that they could put them up on GOG for 50 cents each or something.
These two things, the game is still
RMT City.
Just been losing players since launch, basically. And there are several reasons for this. I give it 5.
Rust is ass since Recoil update, it's banned. I mean, that doesn't keep tons of people from playing it. I mean, whether the game is ass or not, it obviously has withstood the test of time. It's still a game that shit tons of people play, and there's 5 times minimum the number of concurrent players in that video game at any given moment. Like at the highest peak player count that Dark and Darker has seen in the last 6 months is 5x'd by Rust's worst day in the last 4 years.
Reasons, which I'm going to go over in this video. So
like whether the game is ass or not, today there's 5 times plus more players in that video game than there are in Dark and Darker.
1. The core systems of the game haven't been developed. The game's core mechanics have barely changed at all, even since from release early access.
Like his entire point is that Rust has been doing things right, repeatedly right, to where more and more people are playing the game, you know?
Just over 2 years ago.
And honestly, it's probably the toxic memery bullshit and like everybody faking Indian accents to try and like be silly, and you know what I mean? Like that game has a lot of silly shit that you can do.
Example, we were promised a skill tree training system early on in the playtest.
I was told that skill trees will severely throw off the balancing.
Look at, can we just take a second to look at like how Jay used to like illuminate his room and shit? He was trying. Nowadays he just don't give a fuck. He's got the lights turned down low. He put the camera on his desk. Like, my man just went like, fuck it, I'm just going to run scuffed. I don't care. I'm just going to
really throw off.
Yeah, like he just, like, he gave up on trying. He's like, I'm just going to play video games. Fuck it.
The balance.
Like, I love the guy. Don't get me wrong. It's just funny.
This was later changed to multi-classing and then fully removed. Another system would be the melee combat system. It's been the same from release, and this kind of ties in with the desync issues that are related to blocking that haven't been resolved, which is a major problem.
Yeah, so when the hitbox of the weapon that you're swinging with ends up starting, the animation ends up starting behind the plane for the shield, it hits you anyway, and then you end up receiving damage. And this is something that they've known about since the start, and they keep saying that it's something that they know that they need to fix and they're going to prioritize it. But it was like, well, we can fix this, or we could give you Sorcerer.
Problem in this game from the very beginning. And as well as that, we have the inventory system. This also hasn't been changed at all since the release of the game. There was a point a while back where,
yeah, like, what is this, like the giant blank spots that are supposed to be for quivers and backpacks, and how it's supposed to be tied to the resourcefulness system, and we haven't seen any of that yet
since the release of the game. There was a point a while
fucking
back where Iron Mace did seemingly try to adjust the inventory system, but it was a complete disaster from what I remember, and they pretty much just rolled back all of the changes. This is kind of tied in with the reason why they haven't released the quiver.
I guess Sea Turtle's making a good point. The entire reason why he's making the comparison between Dark and Darker and Rust is because Rust started off with the same kind of numbers that Dark and Darker did, had fallen off worse than Dark and Darker has, but was able to recover from it. So he's saying like, yeah, there's a lull, but they have an opportunity to be able to bring it back, and Rust is an example of that occurring because they did a lot of stuff right.
Or any sort of inventory like storage developments. They haven't done anything with it. It seems like they tried, it didn't work, and they kind of just gave up. Reason number 2 for the falling player base, in my opinion, is terrible communication. Iron Mace has had really bad communication with their audience since the early access launch. Even 2 years into this game's lifespan, we still don't have a newsfeed or any sort of patch notes posted within the game that are readily available.
Agreed.
If you want to find out what's changing from patch to patch, you have to keep up with the Dark and Darker Discord, and even then, things are often left out. On top of that, the game doesn't have any sort of public roadmap. You've only been told that things are on their way, and left to guess when that would be. Additionally, in the recent wipes, some of the only communication we received mid-wipe from SDF, the vision behind the game, is in various streamers' chats. People will talk about these chats on Discord or Reddit and take screenshots, but if you're not immersed in Dark and Darker social media, you would have literally no idea what's going on with the development of the game. I think that
I wonder where someone could go to stay up to date on everything related to Dark and Darker. Like if there were like, say, a YouTube channel that existed that helped people, you know, stay current with the game. Someone should do that. Someone should have a, you know, kind of like a news channel that helps people keep up with all the like patch notes and like little things that happen when the devs end up, you know, chiming in on things. That'd probably be a really good YouTube channel to maintain, you know? Just
third biggest problem that's been plaguing this game is the flip-flopping.
Someone should do something.
So Iron Mace has
done
these
VOD?
constant back and forth examples of this, but they've done it in pretty much every aspect of the game. My first example, it's a simple one, is class balance changes. If you search in the Dark and Darker announcements on Discord the words Axe Specialization, which is a barbarian perk, the number has went from 5 weapon damage to 10% physical damage bonus.
This is why I subscribe to Sparky Cow. That's right. So yeah, I saw this. 3 weapon
damage to 5 weapon damage to 3 weapon damage to 5 weapon damage to 3 weapon damage. That wasn't an exaggeration or a joke. That is literally the path.
Like, this isn't unique. This isn't unique at all. Like,
went from 5 weapon damage.
There's
10% physical damage bonus to 3 weapon damage to 5 weapon damage to 3 weapon damage to 5 weapon damage to 3 weapon damage.
This is so true. This is so true. And then there was, dude, look at fighter weapon mastery getting nerfed and then rebuffed. It went from 10% to 5% to no bonus to 5% to 10%, right? Because now it's back where it started. They've done the same thing with Rapier. They've done the same thing with various daggers. They did the same thing with Bardiche. They reduced Bardiche damage and then rebuffed it back.
Damage. That wasn't an exaggeration or a joke. That is literally the path that this perk has gone on.
Why don't wait, it's actually a great point. In all things, compromise is usually the best solution, right? So why don't they just make it 4? It went from 3 to 5, back to 3, up to 5, back to 3. Why don't you just put it in the middle? Call it a day.
And
because then what would happen is they'd put it at 4, and then that would be too strong. So then they'd put it at 2, and then they would put it back to 4 again. And then if they made it 3, they'd have to go up to 5, and then back to 3 again, and we're just back where we started.
There's a lot of other perks and abilities that have had a similar path. But another example of this is more of a major system in the game, which was removing and adding back the BR circle. So obviously we have this battle royale circle. If you're within the circle, you don't take damage.
I love this graphic. I love this graphic.
If you're outside of it, you take damage. The game was released with the circle.
The MS Paint illustrations are fucking mint.
The only map was the crypts.
I wish Nexon won. SDF sucks. Okay, look, just because Nexon owns the studio that made Arc Raiders doesn't make Nexon good game developers. It just makes them good investors. Okay? God damn. Like, there is, all right, I think SDF is making mistakes to like, let's just incorporate Darth Vader. Bring him in. He can choke slam a few motherfuckers, and then we'll get a good video game.
Later, which also had the circle, and then early access, they released the Ice Caves, or the Ice Mountain, which was
we'd at least have content. Okay, what if the additional content sucked though? You know what I mean? What if they were like, yeah, so we're gonna add 50 separate skins and 7 different forms of currency. Look at all the content that we've got. Thank you for your money. What if that was the content ad? Because that's what they did to MapleStory. And not only did they do that, but they fudged the numbers on the loot boxes to where the people that were buying them were not getting the percentages that were being advertised for said loot boxes. And now they're being sued and they lost millions of dollars in a class action suit.
To be the
so, I mean, you know what I'm saying?
up without us. But then later they ended up removing the circle from all maps.
Yeah, what if your content is the Death Star and you're on the planet the thing is aimed at?
After that, they add the circle back to High Roller only, and they also include it with the Ice Mountain, which was the map designed not to have the circle, which is odd. And I'm expecting eventually they're probably just gonna remove the circle again. I mean, I'm just ready for it.
I mean, he's not wrong. I've said this before. A lot of times it feels like Terry and SDF are like a divorced couple and we're the kids, you know? And there's a court order that says like each parent gets the kids for like 1 week for vacation in the summertime. And they're arguing over like the 3rd week of June to see who gets to take the kids, you know, to on vacation to like the Outer Banks in North Carolina or something. They're like, no, it's my week with the kids. There's no BR circle this week. You promised. You said I could have it. It's my turn this year.
At this point.
That's exactly what it feels like. And then SDF's like, no, you coddle them too much. There should be a BR circle in this fucking video game. Now get out of my office.
Want to just go
And Terry's like, I swear to God, I'm gonna take you back to court.
back and forth. But
And then SDF's like, no, please.
the flopping of changes
I can't afford it.
in and of itself really isn't a problem. It's the fact that these changes, which they keep going back and
It feels like they're arguing over I don't fucking want them. I don't. No, you take the little bastards. I'm done with them. I don't want the fucking kid. I'm just going to see him every other weekend. All right, we're not doing overnights, but I'll pay my child support on time.
forth on seem to have taken the place of actually adding new content to the game during wipes. The routine of this game since the start of early access has pretty much been that all of the content for a new wipe is released on wipe day, and pretty much every single patch during the wipe for the next 3 to 4 months is kind of just tinkering with balance changes that ended up.
I completely agree with this. Every time that there's a wipe, there seems like there's some minor adjustment or an introduction of like a slightly new mechanic that shifts a class a little bit. And then the rest of the time, like when they're doing patches, it's like, here's some bug fixes. And then there's balance change notes that are like spreadsheet values that get modified. I completely agree with this.
Reverted
Every once in a while, like mid-wipe, you'd see like, well, here's 5 new modules that we added.
Anyway, another very big problem for this game is the amount of queues. So a big problem this game has suffered from is
Calculate the child support for the full 18 years. I'll pay it all now. Who was it? Was it the NFL guy, right? That didn't want the kids. That didn't want the kid, and he was just like, "Can I pay it all up front?"
the sheer amount of queues that
He paid her like $1.5 million just to do the walk away
added.
because she tried to. Yeah, NBA player. Yeah. Tried to trap her or whatever.
Already dwindling player base into a million different queues, which in turn leads to dead lobbies, which leads to people quitting the game, which leads to more dead lobbies, which is just a cycle that continues.
Agreed.
So I'm sure you get the point. So
Yeah, it's
to
a negative
understand
feedback
how
loop.
insane the
Quicksand.
amount of queues are on this game, I'm going to do some simple math. We have 3 maps. Each map has 3 party sizes.
He's gonna come back and say like 320 lobbies, right? Because that's current math, 320.
So it's 3 times 3 times 4, that's 36. Then we have 8 regions, so 36 times 8 is 288. We also have arena on 8 regions, so that's 296 when arena's up. And we have adventure mode on 8 regions.
And there's the adventure
with
mode,
3
yeah.
map, which is another 24. So that's 320 queues. This game has
320 queues.
320 separate queues.
Now divide that out by the number of concurrent players, and then shift 50 to 60% of that to EU and US. And then when you have like the remaining 40% or so of the concurrent player base left between every other region, right? Because like you're talking US West to like Frankfurt, that block is probably like 60% plus of the player base. So then you have like 40% of, so on the outside, we'll say 20,000. So you got like 5,000 concurrent players spread out across like the remaining 4 or 5 servers, if you're lucky, on 320 queues. So you're at like 15 people like per queue, maybe. And that's why you don't see anybody in HR.
The game has a player population, if we're being generous, of around 15,000, and we have 320 queues. During the playtest, this game had Crypt, Normal, and High Roller, and 8 regions. So we had 16 queues total.
Yep.
Sure, if the game had a player base of like 300,000 concurrent.
And there was 100,000 concurrent players during the playtest in the early days. There was Crypts HR and Crypts Normal, and it was free for all. No solo, duo, trio. People just had to go in trios. No autofill. I mean, a lot of that was shit because, you know, listen, some of us are cave dwellers and we don't have friends, okay? Like, it's just how it is. You know, some of us like to play alone and just see what we can do on our own, right? And it didn't work out so great for people that ran into 3-mans because you couldn't really like solo versus 3 people. Didn't work out great, you know? But you had slammed full lobbies every single time.
Maybe we could have 320 queues, but we're hovering around.
Some of us have friends that are more popular than us.
And
That's
splitting
true too.
all these people into all these queues lobbies just makes all the lobbies feel empty, which in turn just makes
You
more
could be a
people
sneaky
quit
boy.
and
Yeah,
makes
well,
them-
unless you're Spud and you hold a bow and arrow in your hands, in which case you're killing like 7 rogues in rapid succession.
more empty. That's how it goes. In my opinion, this might
And you're playing Doomslayer from like Doom 2016 in the background as you're murdering the shit out of everyone.
be the number
Right? You know?
one reason for the recent player decline over the past couple webs. Final problem that this game has been suffering from since the launch is the slow release of new content. So everyone was giving
I agree.
Iron Mace the benefit of the doubt
100%
for
agree.
the first 1 to 2 years when it came to generating new content because 1, they were a very new company, and 2, they had an ongoing legal battle with Nexon. If you fast forward a couple of years though, the lawsuit is concluded, seemingly.
Well,
I don't know,
kind
I've
of.
been told that Nexon will just refile, keep them trapped in legal hell forever, but I'm no lawyer and I have no idea if it's actually
I mean, so I know the criminal case is more or less dismissed. There's like one issue that SDF still has to deal with on the criminal side of things, which has to do with like the server stuff. You know, him having a server and like moving data from Nexon out to like an external server when he didn't have permission. So he's got to deal with that still. But Iron Mace is still very much like involved in this case because they're appealing it. But I mean, up until like probably from the like a month after the DMCA claim up until probably about 2 months ago, they were having to be, you know, probably splitting time like half and half because the information that they had to get in order to be able to make the court presentations that they were presenting had to be done by them and their team, and they had to pull information and be able to explain it like through the court system to the judge, which they fucked up on for like one of the counts, and that's the thing that cost them all the money, which is what they're appealing. But in order to generate the appeal, they have to go and gather all of that information to be able to combat like that last count. They did a really good job with the first bunch, but the last count, which is what cost them all the cash, is the thing that they have to like gather. And unfortunately, that means that they have to do it themselves. So there's man hours and dev time that were like let's say like a modeler, right, who would be generating working on a monster and the animations for that monster or whatever for something that we're gonna fight. Rather than them doing that, they have to go back into like old code and pull up old modeling information and process and explain that so that they can then turn that over to the lawyers so that the lawyers can explain that to the court in the appeal. Because if they fuck this up, then they're like the award to Nexon is going to stick. So they're still very much like involved in having to do that stuff themselves. Now, that being said, they're a dev team of like 120 people now, of a lot of like junior guys. They're not all senior devs. A lot of them are junior guys and like people that would have been interns at Blizzard that are being taught how to do what they're doing now. And even those, like, they're relatively talented, they've had to basically take like brand new people in game dev and like train them up because the negative stigma in South Korea is fucking them. Because all the negative press basically made it so that no one wants to touch Iron Mace that has any experience for fear that they would never be able to work in game dev ever again. Because like no company will hire them because Iron Mace are a bunch of thieves, right? Like that's the way that they've been painted. So part of this is attributed to them having to more or less like, you know, cultivate this talent from like a seedling and like try and grow these people into somebody that is like, you know, relatively independent, and you can go, all right, I need you to make me a thing, and then just walk away, and you can't do that with them for the most part, right? So like that's the slowdown, right? And not that I'm trying to make excuses for them, but I mean, that's more or less the explanation. However, I do agree with Repose, and I've been saying this for a while, that content is the thing that will keep people like hooked in. Like, yeah, they absolutely need like core gameplay functionality, and like the thing with all these like spreadsheet values going up and down and up and down and up and down is insane. And they really need to work on like more fine tuning and adjusting like how the balance is going. And what they really need is somebody that really understands like the ripple effect of, if I modify the PDR curve by 5%, right, that's going to affect all of these other pieces of armor that would in turn affect this class and make them this much or this less or more survivable, which would in turn affect like all these weapon stats. And they need to have somebody that has like that weaponized level of autism that can like map all of that out and understand it. And I don't think that they really have somebody in the office that's capable of doing that yet.
True. Regardless, they publicly stated that they now have over 100 employees working at this company, and
They need somebody to play their game to understand. Well, it's more than that, right? Like, think about it in terms of like EVE Online and the people at EVE Online hiring like a PhD economist to be able to build out and run the economy of EVE Online and making the adjustments that they're making, right? It's having somebody that really, really understands stats and what those stats affect and how it changes and moves things, right? And like I said, I don't think that they have somebody in the office. Like, I know that they all play the game, and like SDF is playing Druid now, and like, you know, we all make memes about like, why would you give Druid 2 dashes? And I still don't fucking understand that. But what I mean is they need somebody that not only plays the game, but somebody that has like that fundamental level of understanding and it can explain why changes get made to the effect that they do. Because sometimes it looks like they're like, all right, well, it doesn't look like Barb is being as effective in PvP in threes, so we're going to give them a little bit more stickiness by making like shouts slow people down more, and we're going to make it so that they're more likely to kill their target if they get like a 2 swings on them with a Bardiche. So we're going to make Bardiche an axe so they get the extra weapon damage, and we're going to give more weapon damage to Bardiche, right? Like, that's the logic behind it, but then when put into practice, it doesn't make sense, because the classes that are most susceptible to that are the ones that need to be able to kite them the most, and the kiting is the thing that ends up separating them out, right? It's more about skill expression than it is about like stat checks. Whereas on the Barb side, it's like, all right, well, if I serpentine and this guy fucks up this shot, he doesn't slow me down, I don't get hit by this ice bolt or whatever, I'm going to cleave this dude in the face and I win. You know what I mean? And it, like, that's more than just like weapon damage changes.
Despite these 2 hurdles no longer being an issue, the rate of releasing content has been extremely slow. You basically only get new content once every 4 months. Even then, the amount of things added is kind of small. Older classes feel completely neglected because when new stuff does come out, it's very rarely for any of the original classes.
Agreed.
It's been most an issue the last 2 wipes, in my opinion, especially the current one, because this wipe, really nothing major was added to the game other than PvE mode, which for existing players, that's not really a huge draw. Yeah, so since Sorcerer, which was 6 months ago, not really anything big has been added. It also disturbs me to my core that Rogue hasn't gotten a single new weapon since playtest 4, which was in February of 2023.
I mean, yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, you can say this about most of the old classes. It seems like the old class that gets the most attention is Cleric, usually for good or bad or whatever. But like, Rogue doesn't really see a whole lot of adjustment aside from like spreadsheeted movement changes when it comes to double jump. You know, there's not a lot of like, you know, shivish weapons that are getting added to the game. Bard is in the same boat. Bard has had the same 10 spell or 10 song orientation since the beginning of time. Wizards in the same boat. They got the door lock bullshit spell that no one brings in Explosion in like the last calendar year, you know? They need love. They should, like, you have like the new hotness that comes along, and they have like these, it looks like as they iterate on new classes, there's like these cool ideas that they have, right? Like Druid was kind of like a move toward like movement stuff, and it was like, wow, that's actually really cool, and like how you can chain the shapeshift stuff together. I mean, I know that it's toxic bullshit, but as a core class, when you're playing it, you're like, oh, this is actually kind of neat where I can like do this and, you know, kind of like chain these things along. Sorcerer, kind of the same deal where you're like able to do these chains of spells that combo into each other, you know? But the old classes, like the baseline classes, feel very bland in comparison. So I completely agree with him.
Now, those are the 5 biggest issues in this game, in my opinion.
Explosion is fine. I mean, it's a good spell, right?
It was,
but like Sorcerer has like how many tens of spell combinations in, you know, between the single spells and the spell combos, they have like what, 25, 30 spells. Sorc has way more utility and options than Wiz does at this point in time. And Wizard is supposed to be the class that's like, I have this massive library of shit. You know, they're like the guy in like the late 90s, early 2000s that had like 50,000 songs in their iTunes library, and you're like, God damn, you have every song known to man. But that's not what this is.
Complete disaster.
Right? They got like the little MP3 player that held like they got like that little like remember like the old track tunes, like little clip-on things that had like one little song on them, and you would like put them on you like carry them around in your backpack or whatever, and they had like one single on them. Like, that's how Wizard feels.
From what I remember, and they pretty much just rolled back all of the changes. This is kind of tied in with the reason why they haven't released Quiver or any sort of inventory, like storage developments. They haven't done anything with it. It seems like they tried. It didn't work.
I got an iTunes gift card, and I have to choose between like this album or this album. I don't get to have both.
and they kind of just gave up. Reason number 2 for the falling player base, in my opinion, is terrible communication. Iron Mace has had really bad communication with their audience since the early access launch. Even 2 years into this game's lifespan, we still don't have a news feed or any sort of patch notes.
Man, I don't know if I agree with this. I don't know if I agree with this.
Posted within the game that are readily available. If you want to find out what's changing from patch to patch, you have to keep up with the Dark and Darker Discord.
Oh wait, dude, I skipped around. My fault. I lost it. There we go.
And falling over these past couple of years, and here's how I would fix all of them. I'm no expert, but I have played this game pretty much every single day for the past 2 years.
11,771 hours.
I'm not saying I could just solve this instantly. If I was given SDF's job,
over 12,000 hours in game.
Problems, and I wouldn't know exactly what to do. But I think I have some good ideas, and hopefully, if Iron Mace listens, it will help the game in the long term. First thing I would recommend would be to prioritize developing existing systems instead of just releasing new stuff. Adding a quiver might seem trivial, but that would most likely come with an entire overhaul of the inventory system and include a multitude of
which they said that they were doing.
I think Iron Mace underestimates how much the player base would appreciate changes like this to releasing a shiny new class or map. People have been begging for blocking to be
but like fuck Rangers though, right? We can all say fuck Rangers, right? I'm just saying.
Looked at quivers to be implemented, and those things being worked on would
like if Rangers are crying, it gives me joy in my heart. Yeah, I don't think you guys understand. Like if I hear that a Ranger is sobbing, like audibly sobbing, it makes me smile. Like I don't have to think about it. It just like subconsciously I just start grinning. You know what I mean?
Be a nice
sorry, Vincent, I'm sorry. Vincent, I'm sorry, man. I love you.
Gesture to the community, and I think it actually would matter. It might seem small, but I really think it would
matter.
Your
Deadass can't loot on Ranger. I mean, that's fair. I know I'm memeing. I agree that like the quiver and the backpack thing needed to be in the game a year ago.
Next would be to include a publicly
especially Servo Ranger
available
goddamn true damage Servo Ranger
list of patch notes that you can browse within the game. It would also be great if SDF or the management at Iron Mace would communicate more.
You ain't sorry as hell. I say this as somebody that plays Sorcerer, and Rangers are the thing I fear most. I fear Rangers more than I fear Druids.
Discord and give us a realistic timeline of future
and they have double dash now. Those fucks.
Is that they're planning?
SDF playing Druid now, buffing his damn class. I swear to God.
Communication has gotten better with the tavern table that they've been doing, but it still feels like we're left in the dark most of the time.
See, I agree with this. I absolutely agree with this. There absolutely should be, like, because, and this is something that I complained about a lot with Tarkov, and probably why I don't think that like their communication is as bad as Repose says it is, because I came from Tarkov and they didn't ever say shit ever. It took 8 years for people to get them just to add like surveys or even put like notes in the game. But I completely agree. Like, not everyone that plays this game is going to be in the Discord. Not everyone that plays this game watches my YouTube channel, although they should. But like, there's no in-game patch notes or news thing. There's a pop-up that happens. Like when you enter the game, there's a little pop-up at the start that says like, these are the things that we changed. But there isn't like a patch notes link. And there should be. There should be something in-game that lists the patch notes so that people can read them and understand. You know what I mean?
When it comes to the future plans for this game. Next, it's time to stop the flip-flopping of changes.
That being said, I actually think that Iron Mace does a better job than most companies do. I think Iron Mace does a better job than most companies do at communicating. I think they're a lot more open than most other developers are. And I also think that SDF, to his credit, doesn't come across as somebody that thinks that they know more about the game than the player base does. He's always seemed like somebody that is trying to provide the players with what they want, and he always comes across as somebody that's relatively humble. Like, I know that he'll meme a little bit on a microphone or whatever when they're doing Q&A stuff, but for the most part, I think that he's a pretty humble dude. I think that he's just trying to make a good game that people want to play. But I think that he gets in his own way when it comes to like all these like balance changes, stat changes and stuff.
They need to make a plan and stick to it. If we're spending our time adding something and reverting
your videos are getting 15 to 20k views, so pretty much everyone playing the game is watching you. Fuck.
And adding it back and reverting it.
That is harmful and complimentary at the same time. That's a backhanded compliment if I ever heard one. Oh man.
And there's just no possible way that this is an effective use of time. So obviously I don't know the inner workings of Iron.
Maybe because we got all the bar buffs because Skinny P was complaining how weak Barb was? No, I don't think that's why. I think that the reason, I think that he actually looks at stats. I don't think he's going by like people just saying like, well, I feel like this is, you know? I don't think like, and I think think that the whole idea of them listening to streamers is a slippery slope. I don't think that they really listen to streamers. I've made like multiple complaints about balance, saying like, look, man, this doesn't feel great. And they have done nothing with any of that. Not one, ever. But these guys, I think that they're looking at stats, but they're only looking at stats as it pertains to threes. One thing that I do think that they're sticking to is that they're looking at trying to balance the game around like the team game, and they're more or less ignoring the solo play stuff. Because like the Druid and the Barb changes were absolutely around team gameplay, 100% around team gameplay. It had little to nothing to do with solos, which in and of itself is its own issue. But if they're going to do that, I've said this before too, like in the last we had a conversation about this a little while back. If they're going to just balance the game around threes, to the chagrin of many, and like I said, that maybe this is a hot take, then they need to just say fuck it and get rid of the solo queue. Not that I want them to, because I play 90% of the time I play this game, I play solo. But if all they're gonna do is balance the game around threes, then there's no point in having a solo queue at all, unless people just really love getting the shit kicked out of them by druids and barbarians and smite DP clerics. You know, like what are we fucking doing?
I can't be sure how many resources are being spent changing actualization back and forth 20 times. So maybe this isn't even
fighting bosses is easier with solos and teams. Yeah, depending on the boss. That's true. Depending on the boss. I think Warlord is harder with a team for sure. But I think GK is easier with a team.
Even a real problem.
And Lich absolutely is easier with a team, as long as they stay alive, you know, purple circle and all.
But from the outside looking in, it seems like it's
unless you're a warlock, and then
huge waste of time and effort. Moving on,
and I think Wyvern's way easier as a solo too, because that way it's not jumping back and forth, and you can kind of like where he's gonna end up.
Problem of the queues. Well, this is a massive issue for the game. It's not an easy one to solve. The reality of the situation is that
is Terry sitting next to SDF, or is Terry the guy with Hello Aura? This is Grayson. That's Grayson. That's SDF. This is Terry. Grayson's a Korean dude, right? You wouldn't even know that Grayson was Korean if he was speaking English to you, though. He has no accent. None. Grayson's actually cool, man. I like Grayson. He's a good dude.
A huge waste of time and effort. Moving on to the problem of the queues. Well, this is a massive issue for the game. It's not an easy one to
solve. Wait, what happened to Odin? What happened to Odin? I didn't hear about this. Do you mean Soma? Odin, this guy's Odin. Odin still works for them, I think, right? Oh, Soma. Okay. All right, that makes sense. They balance the game around trios, but average players get stomped in HR trios. You have to play meta slave, buff ball comp, or be a trio of streamers that plays 10 hours a day. I mean, yeah, like, don't get me wrong. It's going to be, like, there's a skill gap. I mean, yeah, like there's stat checks on gear and stuff and unlimited and all that, right? And you can have, like, perfectly itemized epics or perfectly itemized blues, depending on, like which queue you're running, right? Now with, like, the gear differences and stuff. But you can, like, absolutely see there's a skill gap between people that got 500 hours and 5,000, right? For sure. Like, with everybody, I'm not God's gift to PvP, but, you know, in arenas, I think I'm like 2,300, you know, without getting, like, hyper sweaty, just kind of fucking memeing. Nothing crazy, but, you know, just shy of pulling, like, Warlord rank or whatever. Which is going to be another interesting thing, too. Like, how are they going to work out those arena brackets? Once you get over, like, 2,000, you're going to have, like, 20-minute queue times or something, because there's going to be 15 people that are up there. I don't even know how they're gonna like figure that shit out. If you know how to aura farm in game, it's over. Yeah. Need to stay locked in. Yo, what up, Propose? How you doing, homie?
Massive issue for the game. It's not an easy one to solve. The reality of the situation is that fundamentally, to reduce the amount of queues, you're going to make some players unhappy. Out of all the queues in the game, there will be at least one player that is going to be upset if any singular one of them are removed. So I don't know.
Well, I mean, yeah, there's people that bitch right now about it. There's people that are bitching that there shouldn't be a solo queue. Like, why do we have solo queues? You know, like, you're never going to make anybody happy.
Exactly how to tackle this problem, but I do think it's something that we should probably start testing and maybe experimenting. So as a start, this might sound extreme, but maybe remove solos, remove duos, or even remove trios. So I'm a trios player, but at this point, I don't even care.
Oh my God, could you imagine if they removed trios? If this became like a duos game? Oh God. Yo, I just want to watch Reddit burn. I want them to remove trios for like a week just so that I can watch Reddit light on fire. They will eat their own. Oh my God. I just want to watch it happen. Holy shit. Duos, I honestly think duos is the most fun. I agree. I think it is. I think duos is the most fun. But honestly, like, how many gamers have one friend, you know? It's really, honestly, if you think about it, right? Like, I'd say most gamers have like one friend. Two friends though, that's kind of pushing it. You know, we haven't got time for two friends. You know, one friend. One friend's enough.
Move it, just focus on solos or duos, because all I want is the lobbies to populate.
One is a lot, right? That takes a lot of effort. Two friends is impossible. That's crazy.
My personal experience, it feels like no matter what game mode I play,
zero is a lot.
Extremely rare to come across.
All my friends are normies. Dude, I know that feeling too.
early blue, just check the lobby and see if anyone is in there. I don't know which idea is the best, but I know 100% for sure that we need to reduce the amount of queues on this game.
Agreed.
My final point is
Preach.
about the slow release of new content, and that's not really something I can provide a fix for. At the end of the day, it's just my opinion from observing the game, and like I said earlier, I don't know the inner workings of Iron Mace as a company. All I do know from my limited research is that they said they had 100 employees, and that does seem like a lot for a game company, at least when I've compared it to other games, and it just feels like they're moving extremely slowly. So this could be because SDF is a bottleneck. Several people who have worked at Iron Mace have said that everything needs to pass through him and it slows everything down. But yeah, without being personally involved in Iron Mace, I don't really know how they could solve this issue.
Yeah, I think SDF as a creative director, right? Like his time, like let's say when he was working at Nexon, was to run a team of like 11 people, right? So he was the conduit by which all the information flowed through to get from his team up and then back down again, came back through him and Terry, I guess. So when you have a larger dev team, if you're kind of micromanaging that, I think that it ends up slowing things down considerably. I agree with that. So I mean that, and I think that he's kind of admitted to that himself by saying like he's trying to do a better job delegating. Obviously the hope is that they're able to streamline it more. And you want them, it goes without saying that you want them to be able to like kick out content at a faster pace, especially when you have a wipe cycle. They kind of like shot themselves in the foot a little bit by having a wipe cycle that was like 90 to 120 days or whatever, because now you have to churn out like new pieces of content based around a relatively fast turnaround time. Like most companies. Like if you look at something like World of Warcraft, right? Blizzard has a massive team, AAA studio, the whole deal, right? Like they obviously have like tons of senior devs, big teams. They're putting out like major content editions. At least the framework for it is being done like every year, right? Every 15-ish months, something like that, right? They put out like a new big, like here's the new like massive fucking series of biomes that we're adding and like all these bosses. And then like they'll have the exterior of like, all right, well this is gonna be like another raid instance that we're gonna add. And then every 3 months, it's like their focus is on the raid instance, but all of the base stuff is in like for a once a year deal, right? I don't know if Iron Mace has the capability of being able to say like, yeah, so we're going to add like all of this stuff in, Banshee, like with the ruins changes, like Banshee was in there just as a placeholder, some little crying ghost like in the middle of the floor that you had to find. And then it took them, I don't know, like half the wipe or whatever to add the boss fight. I don't know how they could speed it up. But for them to add like completely new levels every 3 months or whatever, I think is impossible. Like they kind of shot themselves in the foot a little bit, if I'm being honest. It's a tough thing to try and like model out like 25 new modules or whatever it's going to be for like this water map, especially if they're talking like verticality changes and like they're going to have like all this deep water and stuff. I don't know what they're going to do there. Development should be faster with the whole AI wave. They need to put any and all AI generative anything in the fucking in a 55-gallon drum and light it on fire. Because the only thing that I've seen that actually works would be like AI learning algorithms teaching like things how to walk and like deal with terrain. Like that kind of stuff is fine. But unless you're doing it to like train models on how to move more appropriately as I don't know, humanoids or whatever the hell it is that you're putting out there, fuck all the AI stuff. Fuck AI coding, fuck AI artwork, fuck all that stuff in the face. Hell no. If the moment that Iron Mace turns toward vibe coding, I am fucking done. Ain't no way.
But it is something that needs to be worked on. I think it is one of the major problems of the game and the reason the player base has been falling. So in conclusion, this video might seem very negative, saying everything bad about the game and the reason it's kind of been slowly dying. But despite all this, I still love the game. Played it almost every single day since early access launch almost 2 years ago. And I really do think if the game was on the right track, it could be a top game on Steam. This game as a concept is incredibly brilliant and unique. And if the execution was done well, I think the game could pop off. And yeah, those are my
I don't give a crap how a game is made as long as it's good, I'll play it. I mean, that's fine. And I could be a purist, right? But on the artistic side of things, I would prefer that humans are the things that I am compensating for what it is that I am playing, not whether or not a mega billion-dollar whatever corporation invested in the right algorithm.
On the state of the game. One last thing, let's go on Buff Rogue. Peace.
I mean, based. Buff Rogue makes... Yeah. So good video, dude. Good video. Repose nailed a lot of shit.